7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 499 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's show we've got some more news about boom blended wing airliners. Wizz Air are taking a Wizz, kind of, and EasyJet have gone all hydrogen powered, sort of. We'll be taking a commercial break with yet another retro airline ad. We've got a meaty Caption This for everyone to get stuck into. And in the military news, we have a brilliant story about a Royal Air Force veteran that's been reunited with his first plane. So joining me this week, he's absolutely 100% stress-free this week across in the PTUK Master Suite studio. It is, of course, none other than our very own darling of the airwaves. It's Matt Smith.
Yes, it's all gone terribly wrong. There's no way of sugarcoating it. It's been a difficult start to the programme, has it not, Nev?
Somewhat. But we're okay now.
Did. Yeah.
We're okay
Absolutely.
now, yeah.
We're up
Good
running.
to see you, as always, Mr. Smith. He's busy, frantically in the studio, getting everything plugged in and
Working.
rock and roll, working. Returning just in time from another flight, it's Mr. 1A himself. No show would be complete without Nev getting his blood pressure raised, so we've got a Nev's terminal tantrum to look forward to later on in the show, haven't we, Mr. Bown?
Yes, it nearly was a no-show tonight due to having to wait for a long time for my luggage at T5 at Heathrow. I don't normally take any luggage with me, but I did on this occasion. Also, I've got a very red face, I've just noticed, due to very windy Edinburgh, and I've got a bit of windburn as well.
Oh,
which is not going to come across well on the audio podcast. I can see.
No.
Yeah. But no, it's been a hectic week, more of which later on.
Excellent. Well, good to see you, Nev. Glad you managed to get back through the crowds of people all trying to get your autograph at the airport.
Well.
Anyway, and back again this week. And I'm going to read exactly what producer Nick has put here. And back again, our semi-tame pilot, everyone's favourite Geordie. Way folks.
Geordie?
It's Captain Andy.
Oh, dear.
Yes, Geordie. How dare you? How dare you?
Oh, there's the end of a beautiful friendship right there.
Geordie? I'm not from Tyneside.
No stereotyping whatsoever. Really.
No, none whatsoever.
Unbelievable.
No.
Unbelievable.
Fuming, he is fuming.
I am. But I am back. Thanks for having us again, even though you've just insulted me on arrival.
Wow. Okay. Nick, you need to explain yourself. I'm sorry. No,
Nick's hiding behind.
He's hiding. Oh, no, fair enough.
I'm saying nothing.
No,
I knew that. I knew I'd come to regret that one.
Yeah.
Apologies, Andy.
It's okay. I'll have some of that gin, remember, yeah?
Oh, yes,
gin.
right. Yeah, okay.
No problem. I was just checking the stocks, actually, the other day, and it's,
very good.
I'm sure we can sort something out.
Yeah, double helpings,
Lovely.
I think, now after that, yeah.
I should be more careful with my regional stereotypes
Absolutely.
in the future.
Geordie, YI, man. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Shock.
Next thing you know, we're going to go about Biker Grove. And if you don't live in the UK, you wouldn't know what that is.
No. If you do live in the UK, you probably won't know what that is.
Or if you're under 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never
Right. Also, this week, it's also Captain John Hutchinson's 87th birthday. And actually, Nev, I think you met up with Captain John Hutchinson, didn't you?
Yes, I was looking back at when we did the interviews with him, with Nick. It's nearly 5 years ago, would you believe? May 2019. We were in John's house near Royston in Hertfordshire, and very nice it was too. And it's still one of the most viewed playlists on our YouTube channel, by the way. I think it was the 8-part series we did with John. So knowing John, he's probably on a ship somewhere doing another one of his lectures, as he tends to do. So, yeah, fabulous fella. And I did some posts on LinkedIn today about it, and a lot of very good reactions. He's a fine gentleman and a great storyteller as well. He's done a lot with his life, even notwithstanding the 26 years at British Airways, all the stuff he'd done before that. But happy birthday, John. Hope you and Sue have a nice day.
Yeah, and don't forget as well, if you haven't already seen that amazing interview that we had with John, don't forget to look through our back catalogue on YouTube, where you can find out more about that great interview with John Hutchison and Nev. So, yeah. We're going to say hello to everyone in the YouTube chat room this evening who's joined. It's going to kick off at the top of the list. Alan White. Hello, Alan. Good to see you in there. Our local listener, Mazouz. Hello, Mazouz. He's in the chat room as well. We've got Richard Adams is in there. He's keeping an eye on things as well. Let me scroll down. Nick Codling is in there. Getting his.
He's hiding now. Yeah.
He's hiding now. Aaron P. Hello to you, Aaron. Bill. Hello to Bill. He's also in there joining us tonight. Hobby Time. Hello to you. Reese is also in the chat room. Good to see you. Dirk. Wouldn't be the chat room without Dirk in the chat room. Thank you, dear. You're right. Sorry, Gemma's just sneezing.
Oh dear. Quick,
don't panic. Did you hear that? It sounded quite loud from here. But
I thought you were being told off. I thought you found out you bought some more stuff that you shouldn't have done.
No. Oh God, no! Don't tell her. No.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
No. The truck's turning up tomorrow with the flight
lovely.
deck.
Right.
Don't forget, if you are listening,
this is where we see a sharp object fly into view from the. Yeah, absolutely.
Don't forget, if you're listening to us on the audio show and you want to find out just how red Nev's face is from that wind, don't forget to check out our YouTube page. Just look for Plain Talking UK. Click on the subscribe icon as well, and the bell icon to be notified when Matt's hitting that go live button on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock right here. So we've got loads to get through tonight. Loads of commercial news, military news. We've got our Caption This, which is very good. If you've not seen that on Facebook, you need to check out the picture. More on that later. And we've also got another interview, haven't we, Nev, from the Dublin Drone Summit.
Oh, yeah, this is a really interesting one. In case you thought that drones were infallible and couldn't be hacked, wait until you see this interview later on. Brilliant.
This was shocking. I was lucky enough to be present for this one. It was shocking.
It was shocking. But more on that later, so make sure you stay tuned. So we've got commercial news to start things off this evening then. So if all the team's ready...
Yeah.
Let's go.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
And kicking off this week's first news story, it's from edition.cnn.com and Jet Zero, groundbreaking blended wing demonstrator plane cleared to fly. So at the end of last month, Long Beach-based Jet Zero announced that Pathfinder, its 1/8 scale blended wing body demonstrator plane, had been granted FAA airworthiness certificate and test flights were imminent. As the industry desperately looks for ways to reduce carbon emissions, it faces somewhat tougher challenge than other sectors precisely because its core technologies have proven so hard to move away from. And it's time for a ripe time to innovate, it says. The blended wing body looks similar to the flying wing design used by military aircraft such as the iconic B-2 bomber, but the blended wing has more volume in the middle section. Both Boeing and Airbus have tinkered with the idea, and Jet Zero's new milestone brings it a little closer to its ambitious goal of putting into service a blended wing aircraft as soon as 2030. They said we feel very strongly about a path to zero emissions in big jets, and the blended wing airframe can deliver 50% lower fuel burn, 50% lower fuel burn and emissions. said Tom O'Leary, co-founder and CEO of Jet Zero. That's a staggering leap, he said, forward in comparison to what the industry is used to. So the blended wing is far from a new concept, and the earliest attempts at building airplanes with this design dates back to the late 1920s in Germany. American aircraft designer and industrialist Jack Northrop created a jet-powered flying wing design back in 1947, which inspired the B-2 in the 1990s. As a sort of hybrid between a flying wing and a traditional tube wing, the blended wing allows the entire aircraft to generate lift, minimizing drag. And NASA says this shape helps to increase fuel economy and creates a larger payload, cargo or passenger areas, in the center body portion of the aircraft. The agency has tested it through one of its experimental planes, which was the X-48. Around 120 test flights between 2007 and 2012, and 2 unmanned remote-controlled X-48 demonstrated the capability of the concept. An aircraft of this type would have a wingspan slightly greater than a Boeing 747 and could operate from existing airport terminals, the agency says. In 2020, Airbus built a small blended wing demonstrator around 6 feet in length, signalling the interest in pursuing a full-size aircraft in the future. But if the shape is so effective, why haven't we yet moved to building planes based on it? According to O'Leary, there is one main technical challenge holding manufacturers back. It's the pressurization of a non-cylindrical fuselage, he says, pointing to the fact that a tube-shaped plane is better to handle in the constant expansion and contraction cycles than ones that come with a, obviously, rectangle curved fuselage, I should say, as in a rectangle. Such a radically new shape would make the interior of the aircraft look and feel wildly different to today's wide-bodied aircraft. That's just to match a wider fuselage, Leary says. Your typical single-aisle plane has 3 by 3 seats, but this is a sort of a shorter and wider tube. You get the same amount of people, but you might have on a 15 to 20 rows across the cabin, depending on how each particular airline would configure it. The story does go on, but it does say on here, it says it remains to be seen whether a 50% reduction in fuel is actually possible. Airbus actually quoted as well that a more modest 20% for their designs would be more along the lines of. But it looks stunning, I will say. It does look very nice in the pictures on the screen there. Although it does look like someone's took a kind of 777 and stood on it, I will say.
It's a beautiful concept and design, but like they say, trying to get it pressurized, really difficult. And also imagine being sat in seat 7 in the middle of that and wanting to get out to the aisle.
I'm not familiar with that seat, Andy, so it wouldn't affect me.
No.
Yes.
It's interesting.
It's interesting, but it's nice to see if this actually does.
There's a lot of work still to do, because as they've said, they've been trialing this design for many, many decades. If they can come up with a way to do it, they will.
Yes, Aaron P has put in the chat room, actually. It's achievable, Aaron says. The 350, the A350, is 17% more fuel efficient than the 787, he says. Huh, didn't know that. So, story number 2, Nev, you've got this next one, and...
speaking of the 787...
Every week.
It's on seattletimes.com, and it says new Boeing whistleblower alleges serious structural flaws on 787 and 777 aircraft. A Boeing quality engineer went public on Tuesday with damaging allegations that the jet maker took manufacturing shortcuts to increase production rates that leave potentially serious structural flaws on its 787 and 777 wide-bodied planes. The Boeing engineer, Sam Salapour, alleged that almost 1,000 787s and about 400 777s currently flying are at risk of premature fatigue damage and structural failure. On January the 19th, lawyers for Salapour wrote a letter detailing his allegations to Mike Whitaker, head of the Federal Aviation Administration. The agency said on Tuesday that it is investigating the claims. The FAA said that we thoroughly investigate all safety reports. This is Ian Gregor speaking. Salapour will speak next week at a Senate hearing convened by Senator Richard Blumenthal to examine Boeing's broken safety culture, focusing on first-hand accounts. Boeing said it is in discussions and will cooperate with Blumenthal's committee and has offered to provide documents, testimony and technical briefings. Salapur and his lawyers spoke in a virtual news conference on Tuesday, and his lawyers said that documents will be presented at the Senate hearing to substantiate his allegations. Boeing, facing rising public alarm about multiple safety issues, responded with a detailed rebuttal to the 787 allegations. We are fully confident in the 787 Dreamliner, Boeing said. These claims about the structural integrity of the 787 are inaccurate. Boeing said extensive testing and analysis shared with the FAA has shown that the issues raised by Salapur do not present any safety concerns, and the aircraft will maintain its service life over several decades. As for the allegations about the 777, Boeing said, we are fully confident in the safety and durability of the 777 family. These claims are inaccurate. Well, the alleged flaws in the 787s relate to the tiny gaps at the joins of the fuselage sections that Boeing initially found in 2020. The discovery led Boeing to largely halt deliveries for almost 2 years at a projected cost of $6.3 billion as it worked to correct the flaws. In August 2022, the FAA approved the fix Boeing had developed and allowed 787 deliveries to resume. The safety agency's approval came after a deep investigation of Boeing's manufacturing process. We didn't approve the return to deliveries until we were convinced that Boeing's corrective actions were effective, the FAA's Mike Greger said. Furthermore, ever since deliveries resumed, the FAA has been inspecting every individual 787 before issuing an airworthiness certificate that allows it to be delivered to an airline. Boeing said in a statement, we slowed production and stopped delivering 787s for nearly 2 years to take our time to get things right and to ensure each aircraft met our exacting engineering specifications. Yet Salapur said on Tuesday the solution Boeing developed hid rather than fixed the problem. He said that in the early 787 program from 2012 onwards, engineers allowed the fuselage sections to be pushed together with excessive force during final assembly before measuring for gaps so as to make it appear like the gaps didn't exist. Even after the 2020 delivery stoppage, this continued, he claimed, based on his work on the programme in 2021. I repeatedly produced reports for my supervisors and management based on Boeing's own data demonstrating that the gaps in the 787 were not being properly measured, he said. As a result, the small filler pieces of material used to fill gaps, known as shims, were in many cases not inserted. As the carbon composite fuselage skin, metal fasteners and joint fittings expand and contract with temperature changes during a flight, such unfilled gaps would theoretically allow the join sections to move slightly relative to one another. Over time, this can cause excessive wear and cause premature failure of the structure, Salapur said. It can cause a catastrophic failure. Discuss.
I don't know if I want to.
It kind of asks the question, when's this all going to end?
Well, my first question is, how many 787s have actually been produced? Because he's saying 1,000 here, so that must be nearly all of them. And about 400 777s. The 777's been flying since 1994 and it's got the best safety record in aviation. Statistically.
And the only hull loss was the
Asiana.
The one that landed short. You're talking about the 777 or the 78. Sorry.
The 777 and the Asiana one in San Francisco. I think that's the only hull loss. And the BA ones. There are two.
BA one at Heathrow. Yeah. But no, the 777 reliability has been phenomenal, isn't it? Actually.
So in terms of deliveries for the 787, there's 1,123 have been delivered. That's according to Wikipedia. So it may not be up to date, but it's in excess of 1,000.
Yeah, so he's claiming that the majority have got problems. But now the FAA are checking everything. There's a lot of stuff in here. We don't have the data, obviously, and I don't want to call anybody out or say anything, but it just seems a bit fishy.
Something ain't right, is it?
Yeah.
I don't think, anyway. Yes. So in answer to your question, I don't think we're anywhere near the end of it. I think.
I know, it's just every week.
It's going to be relentless, I think, for a little while. I think, again, some of this is because there is so much of a focus on them now. That's the thing. That's the issue.
There's a lot to unpack still as well with what's gone on at Boeing. I think it is still the tip of the iceberg with all of these hearings that are going on. I think we're going to hear a lot more about what has occurred. Yeah. And some of it might be quite shocking, but this is the way it has to go now. Boeing has to fix the problems.
It's got to come out. It essentially has to come out of the end of this like fully exposed almost, doesn't it? If there's to be any chance of people trusting, trusting Boeing again, I guess.
Yeah. As my daughter always says to me after something's happened, let's have a fresh start. That's what they need. They need a fresh start and just get everything out there.
And the only way you're going to do that really is get all the skeletons out of the closet, I suppose, and just sort of, deal with the aftermath and sort of prove that you've moved on, I guess.
Yeah. This could be a little bit expensive as well. So let's say that these allegations are unfounded. Boeing's legal department decide to take this gentleman to the cleaners for defamation and incorrect information and that kind of stuff. That could be quite life-changing, couldn't it?
Absolutely.
To be fair, yeah, it could. Yeah. It really could.
So next up, Matt, if you're okay, you've got the next one, and we're back to hydrogen.
We are indeed. Interesting story, this one, actually. Aerotime.aero is the source on this one, and the headline is EasyJet uses hydrogen to power baggage tractors in groundbreaking airport trial. As part of a groundbreaking, in brackets really, Nick is clearly unimpressed, trial to low-cost carrier, EasyJet has used hydrogen at Bristol Airport to refuel and power ground support equipment, specifically baggage tractors. Dubbed Project Acorn, it was the first airside hydrogen... oh no, stupid machine, sorry. The first hydrogen refueling trial ever to take place at a major UK airport, and was led by EasyJet and supported by several cross-industry partners. The hydrogen-powered baggage tractors successfully carried out daily operations while demonstrating that the gas can be safely and reliably used to refuel ground equipment in the busy live airport environment. The trial was in development for over a year with the organisations such as Cranfield Aerospace Solutions, Cranfield University, Connected Places Catapult, DHL Supply Chain, Fuel Cell Systems, the IAAPS Research Institute, Jacobs, Mulag and TCR, all involved. The group intends to use the outputs of the trial to help develop industry best practice standards, provide guidance to airports, airliners, local authorities and regulators on required infrastructure changes, and support the development of a regulatory framework for hydrogen's use on an airfield. Standards which, due to hydrogen's nascency, is that the right phrase, in aviation, do not currently exist. The data and insights gathered will also feed into the research conducted by groups like Hydrogen in Aviation, which is an organisation that includes EasyJet, Rolls-Royce, Airbus, Orsted, GKN Aerospace and BRS, and advocates for the UK to keep pace with the technological developments in carbon emission-free flying. While the technology is advancing at an exciting pace, as hydrogen isn't used in commercial aviation today, there is currently no regulatory guidance in place on how it can and should be used, and so trials like this are very important in building the safety case and providing critical data and insight to inform the development of the industry's first regulatory framework. David Morgan, Chief Operating Officer at EasyJet, has said. Morgan said that this will ensure regulation not only keeps pace with innovation, but importantly also supports the industry in meeting its decarbonisation targets by 2050. The UK Civil Aviation Authority, the CAA, also played an active role in the trial as an independent reviewer of the safety case. Projects such as this are cornerstones of our commitment to report innovation and decarbonisation in the industry. This trial will serve as the basis of a white paper, which we will also be contributing to, as well as allow for the creation of further safety guidance and regulatory standards for the use of hydrogen in aviation. Tim Johnson, Director of Strategy, Policy and Communications at the CAA, said. Oof, that was a hard read. There's a lot of very big words in there, but I mean, I guess, I guess it's to be expected a little bit. I guess, as you say, hydrogen. The bit that makes me a little bit nervous, I guess, is because hydrogen is, well, it's fairly volatile, isn't it, in comparison to things like diesel and avgas and that sort of thing. So I guess that's why extra regulation is required to get it in place, I guess. Hello? Anyone there?
Oh yes, we were just.
Oh, sorry.
We were just listening to you and seeing.
Yes. Okay.
How well you were going to end that story.
Badly is the short answer.
But no, I mean, yeah, hydrogen. Yeah. Of course, there's a lot going on in all sorts of things: commercial vehicles, tractors, that kind of thing as well. So I think we're going to see it a lot more featuring in other things as well.
Yeah, indeed. I do. I mean, is it? It's a fuel that they've not used. I guess the issue is, isn't it? Is it because aviation in general and everything is all such a highly regulated industry, as it should be, certainly in terms of safety. And do you think some of that is because it's not a conventional fuel source, if you see what I mean, and the regulation isn't there for it? But I mean, is it going to be any more or less volatile than the fuels and stuff that they're using already?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the details of what of the how volatile hydrogen is and that kind of thing, but obviously it's being looked at as a serious fuel source for the future, I think. And
in general, I mean,
we've seen with all sorts of other things that there are challenges, lithium-ion batteries being one of them, obviously. So, interesting.
Indeed.
I'm just happy they used the actual correct picture on the story. And it wasn't a 737 EasyJet, because that's normally what they try and do. They whack one of those in, even though obviously we know that they're all 320 fleet.
It's been 13 years since EasyJet had a 737.
Really? Good Lord.
Yeah, long time.
Andy, you're there.
Yes. Yes, this one.
Take this next one for. This is quite interesting because it's something that obviously affects you as a pilot. Not you, of course, because you don't fly anywhere near here. But yeah. Yeah,
well, this is from paddleyourown.canoe.com, and Qantas reroutes flight between Perth and London over Iran missile fears as Mideast tensions ratchet up. Australian flag carrier Qantas is rerouting its flagship non-stop international route between Perth and London Heathrow after US intelligence services warned that Iran might be on the cusp of launching a massive attack on Israel using ballistic missiles and drones. Well, we know they did now. Qantas normally operates a daily flight from Melbourne to London Heathrow via Perth as flight QF9, departing Perth at 6:30 p.m. and arriving in the United Kingdom at 5:05 a.m. the following day. The route usually takes the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner over Oman and the United Arab Emirates before crossing the Persian Gulf and tracking over Iraq before reaching the European continent. At a distance of 9,000 nautical miles, the non-stop flight is at the upper limit of the 787-9's range, so any attempt to avoid escalating tensions in the Middle East means that Qantas can no longer operate the flight without a stopover. As a result, Qantas won't operate the QF9 service as a non-stop flight from Perth to London from Friday the 12th of April until the 15th of April at the earliest. Instead, Qantas will now operate the flight via Singapore as flight QF209 with a short stopover of just over an hour. Departure from Melbourne has been retimed to leave 4 hours earlier in order to arrive in London at the 5:05 a.m. as scheduled. On Thursday, the US Embassy in Jerusalem issued an urgent security alert restricting the movement of staffers and their families from travelling outside the Greater Tel Aviv areas. On Friday, Australian officials echoed those warnings, advising its citizens that the security situation in Israel could quickly deteriorate. And in a statement, a spokesperson from Qantas told us we're temporarily adjusting the flight paths for our flights between Perth and London due to the situation in parts of the Middle East. We'll reach out to our customers directly if there's any change to their booking. The return flight from London Heathrow to Perth will continue to operate non-stop due to prevailing tailwinds. This isn't the first time that Qantas service between Perth and London has been affected by tensions in the Middle East. In January 2020, another threat by Iran on US assets in Iraq also got Qantas pondering a stopover via Singapore. The other option is for Qantas to heavily restrict the number of passengers on the flight in order to reduce the weight of the aircraft and increase its range. But QF normally operates at or close to capacity, so this isn't necessarily the best solution. Yeah, it's been a bit busy down there, hasn't it? That's one way to put it, I suppose.
Is this something that you've ever had or affected you? Obviously not with the Middle East, because you don't obviously fly that far, Andy. But
yeah, I do fly that far.
Oh, you do fly that far?
Yeah, flying to Israel and Egypt and Jordan. So we do sometimes get issues down there.
Oh, right.
Egypt has had its fair share of sort of troubles, hasn't it, in terms of
yeah, like
the
Sinai Peninsula's no go below sort of 20,000 feet now, because of what people down there can have access to and what they can use to fire.
Yeah.
At aircraft. But yeah, I mean, rerouting, it's a pretty normal thing, especially when there's a lot of strike action going on, especially across Europe in the summertime. It just gets tricky when you are getting to the edge of the maximum range of the aircraft.
Just remind us all what the minimum reserve fuel is typically on the routes that you fly. I don't know what's going to be on their longer routes.
Again, it depends whose rules you're working to, but your absolute final minimum is 30 minutes of airborne time above the airfield at 2,000 feet in the hold. I think that's what the regs are. Once you get down to that 30 minutes, then it's a full, or you suspect you're going to hit final reserve, then it's a full mayday for minimum for fuel.
Yeah.
So yeah, but 30 minutes that's not a lot of fuel.
It's not, is that?
No. It's like on my type, it's around 700 kilos, really, on the Neos.
Gosh, that is tiny, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not a lot in the tanks to be left over and still flying around.
Nice, I drink more than that in a week in beer. Anyway.
Yeah, so it's just a shame that obviously they've had to reroute this with a stop and stuff, but that's what happens in the world, isn't it? Things happen. You come up with ingenious ways to get around it.
Absolutely.
Now, next story, Matt. You've got this next one, and I think pretty much it's got your name on. Unless you want me to take it, I'm more than happy to take it if you're
Give me a second, sorry.
This one was featuring on social medias this week. I remember seeing there was a picture on Twitter. I think there's a video as well on Twitter of this. And I know it was brought up in our group as well about something was going on this week at a certain UK airport.
Indeed. So undeclared item found on board Aer Lingus ATR 72-600 triggers security scare. This is in aerotime.aero is the source for this one. And an Aer Lingus ATR 72-600 was diverted back to Birmingham Airport after an undeclared item was found on board the plane while flying to Belfast International Airport. The Emerald Airlines operated ATR 72-600, how many times can we say that in two sentences, made an emergency landing as Birmingham Airport suspended all other flights. 4 armoured vehicles and specialist officers could be seen making their way to the isolated aircraft for inspection. A live feed of the developing incident was broadcast on YouTube, showing dozens of passengers leaving the aircraft. After police finished inspecting the aircraft, I should say, and the undeclared item, the incident was stood down, and the West Midlands Police confirmed that the incident was now being dealt with as a false call with very good intent. All passengers and crew have been evacuated safely, and specialist officers, including the dog unit, have now searched the plane. West Midlands Police added. Birmingham Airport reopened at 1800 hours following the incident, with many of the evening's flights subsequently delayed and some even cancelled. We can confirm that an undeclared item discovered on Aer Lingus regional flight Echo India 3647, operated by Emerald Airlines, from Birmingham to Belfast today was not a security risk. Our teams are currently working to accommodate impacted passengers, a spokesperson for Aer Lingus said. Emerald Airlines is the exclusive operator of the Aer Lingus regional route network. No word so far, by the way, on what the item was and what might have prompted so much concern. Shall we speculate wildly, is what it says in the notes. It's because I suppose many of us sat here are old enough to remember when this was a fairly regular occurrence, not only at airports but sort of any big public events and things like that, really. It's been a while actually since something like this has happened.
Well, I was just watching it online actually when it was all going off, and I suppose from the passenger point of view, obviously they're all safe and everything's great. But had that happened a couple of hours before, there was this massive cell directly over the airfield, and the rain that it produced was phenomenal, and they would have got absolutely soaked as they left the aircraft. But luckily for them, it was okay. But obviously very well handled by everybody. Best to be safe than sorry. Of course.
Yeah. I think they were extra cautious on this due to the destination of the aircraft.
Yeah.
And of course the history. But it's still not that uncommon for things like this to happen. And every airfield has its own procedures of how it handles it, and every airline does as well. Quite often when it says an undeclared item, it was probably an item found on board that was left by somebody else, missed. It happens. It could also happen. It's happened in the past where people have opened their bags and found something that has dropped in from somebody else's bag in security or something like that, and they've panicked about it. But at least everybody did the right thing. The captain could have continued if he wanted to, if he didn't think it was that much of a threat, but went back. No harm, is it? Everybody's safe.
So forgive my naivety here, but how come why back to Birmingham rather than when you've got an incident like that? Is it because they hadn't got very far? Perhaps Birmingham was nearer than, say, Belfast?
Yeah. If they just departed, then and they knew, well, operationally wise, if we can get straight back into Birmingham, no problem. Then why not? If you're that worried as well, you're going to get it on the ground as quickly as you can.
Yeah. Okay.
It is an ATR. You could you can throw those little aircraft around if you really need to. And get it back. So it's a nice little turboprop. So they just turned around and went back. Nice and easy for them.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah, as I say, I was just curious because it's, I didn't know whether it's because Birmingham had perhaps better facilities than Belfast and all that thing. But I guess all airports nowadays are obviously geared up for this sort of thing.
Yeah, and if you're really unsure about a package, are you really going to carry on?
No, no, quite. No.
Who is responsible, Andy, for doing a sweep of the aircraft after passengers have deplaned?
That is the cabin crew's responsibility to do. It all depends as well, because it depends where you're starting from. The DFT have particular rules on it. It depends where you're arriving, where your next destination is going to be, what type of sort of search or stuff that you do on the aircraft. Of course, I'm not going to go into the detail, but there are set out procedures for it.
Interesting.
But ultimate responsibility is the captain's.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah,
and Ev, you've got the next story.
Why do I always get given these stories? I don't know, but let's see how far we get before things start going wrong. This is on the Guardian.com. It says UK startup lifts lid on plan to turn human waste into jet fuel. Aircraft could one day take off on fuel made from human waste under plans revealed by Wizz Air See what they did there? And the British sustainable aviation company Firefly to build a commercial refinery in Essex. Firefly, based in Bristol, said it had developed a process to convert treated sewage into sustainable aviation fuel. The low-cost airline Wizz says it was investing by placing an order potentially worth hundreds of millions of pounds for up to 525,000 tonnes of Firefly's waste-based fuel over the next 15 years. Firefly has now signed agreements with industrial partners for a pilot refinery in Harwich that would take biosolids from Anglian water and turn it into aviation fuel. Airliners will have to ensure that a minimum proportion of fuel burned is certified sustainable in the coming decade, with the EU mandating at least 20% of sustainable aviation fuel by 2035, and the UK expected soon to announce a mandatory 10% by 2030. There are various ways of making sustainable aviation fuel, but most are much more expensive than normal kerosene jet fuel, with a limited supply of waste feedstocks, such as used cooking oil. Well, Firefly's Chief Operations Officer Paul Hilditch said converted sewage could be cheaper and more abundant, providing up to 5% of airlines' fuel needs in the UK. The process, this is going to happen. The process uses biosolids, the water industry term for the final product in the treatment process. How polite. It's crumbly like compost or wet chocolate cake, he said. There's millions of tons of the stuff, and it has no intrinsic value. Well, the company has produced small test quantities of sustainable aviation fuel that he said were chemically indistinguishable from jet fuel, with a residue that can be used as a soil enhancer. The fuel is still in a regulatory testing process, and Firefly is still to secure the investment it needs to build a full-scale factory. However, its chief executive, James Highgate, said it was confident it could be delivering commercial supplies of sustainable aviation fuel by 2028 or 29. And he said that the first facility in Harwich would serve London airports, and there was potential for 2 more in the UK. We're turning sewage into jet fuel, and I can't think of many things that are cooler than that, he commented. Wizz Air's corporate and ESG officer, Yvonne Moynihan, said, alongside fleet renewal and operational efficiency, sustainable aviation fuel plays a critical role in reducing carbon emissions from aviation. She says that Wizz Air investment in Firefly was a perfect pair-up for a low-cost airline, and the carrier aspired to use 10% sustainable aviation fuel across its entire operation by 2030, although it would need a significant ramp-up of production and deployment. Well, there's a story I didn't expect to read tonight when I got off the plane, I have to say. It's what's the largest running cost of aircraft, commercial aircraft, apart from landing fees and customs and the aircraft itself? Of course, it's the fuel and the maintenance.
Yeah, fuel makes up nearly 40% of airlines' costs.
Phenomenal, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and if you can make use of biomass in a nice possible way, why not? Yeah. I wonder what the exhaust smells like from it, though. Farmer's field.
Well, if it's anything like the biomass plant that we've got local to where me and Matt live here, if in the next village, Matt, you know where that is. When the wind changes direction, if you were in the other village to where we are here, it does. Yeah,
I think Neil Lamwarn's got a very valid technical point there. Surely the sweet corn will block the fuel lines.
Yes.
It's an interesting story, Nev.
Yeah. I mean, we're being very careful about what we say here, because this sort of stuff could go off the rails quite easily. But
yes.
No, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yes.
That's all we're going to say about that.
Moving swiftly on, Andy, you've got the next one. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this story, Andy.
No, I haven't. You've got number 7.
Oh, have I?
Yeah.
Oh, that's because I've scrolled down too far. You've got the next one. Yes, that's my fault. Apologies.
We were going to skip this one.
This is from BBC.co.uk. And could Scott's aviation pioneer inspire more women flyers? One of the first female commercial airline pilots was a Scot. I never knew that. Yet few will have even heard of aviator pioneer Winnie Drinkwater. Yeah. In 1930, at the age of 17, Winnie Drinkwater started taking flying lessons. She would go on to secure a license as a pilot, and a commercial pilot, and engineer, all by the time she was 20 years old. Her achievements in the aviation industry at the time were all the more significant due to the very small number of women in the field. But how much has changed since Winnie's flying days back in the 1930s? So here in the UK, the latest figures from the Civil Aviation Authority put the numbers of female airline pilots at around 6.5%. Senior First Officer and Trustee for Aviation in Reach, NEMA, Sonny Robinson, stressed the need for representation and diversity within the industry. She said, "You can't be what you can't see," says NEMA. Her work with Aviation in Reach aims to empower individuals from less represented demographics to reach their aviation career goals. Private pilot Rebecca Wallace, who aspires to have a career in commercial aviation, would like to see more role models in the field. "I would love one day," she said, "that we don't say female pilot, we just say pilot," says Rebecca. Ian Brown, curator at the National Museum of Flight, thinks Winnie Drinkwater's story could inspire young people interested in aviation if more people knew her story. "As a nation, we've pretty much forgotten all about her, and that just doesn't seem right," he said, "when she could inspire so many young people to achieve so much." Now, on the note of this story, make sure that you tune in to next week's special episode, because after this story, that next week's show is going to very much appeal to you. More info on that later on in the show. Andy, how often do you fly with a female pilot with the airline that you fly for?
Plenty often, and I don't call them female pilots. I call them pilots.
Pilots, exactly. Yeah,
we're all pilots. I
pilots.
I don't care who you are. You're a pilot.
How about captains, Andy?
Yep, that number's increasing as well.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that in What's Coming as well, didn't we?
Yes, we did, yeah, in our special episode.
Teaser.
Teaser, exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost like occasionally this show is planned slightly.
I know.
Luck. Nothing more than luck.
So, Andy, what happened to this 737 in the next story?
Yeah, so this is from flightglobal.com. A Blue Air 737 struck tail after captain belatedly intervened to avoid hard landing. Italian investigators have attributed a Boeing 737-800's damaging tail strike at Naples to the captain's belated attempt to avoid a hard landing after the first officer initiated an early flare. The Blue Air aircraft, arriving from Bucharest on the 6th of May 2022, so a few years ago now, had been conducting the ILS approach to runway 24. Its crew had disengaged the autopilot and auto-throttle by the time the aircraft descended to 1,530 feet. But while it passed 1,000 feet with the stabilisation criteria substantially satisfied, says the Italian investigation authority ANSV, the aircraft started deviating from the glide slope, initially rising above and then at 200 to 300 feet dipping below it. Although the aircraft was pitched nose up, the absence of thrust increase caused the airspeed to decline. The captain intervened on the controls to limit the climb attitude and regain airspeed with the aircraft about 300 metres from the runway threshold. Although the 737's airspeed increased to 140 knots, the first officer again lifted the nose at about 60 feet. ANSV says this anticipated flare coincided with a change in wind direction from 194 degrees to 159 degrees, and the aircraft speed reduced to 133 knots at 44 feet. Although the first officer maintained back pressure on the yoke, the jet continued to sink until the captain intervened again at 20 feet to apply a stronger pull. The aircraft landed at a pitch of 8.8 degrees nose up, but this was insufficient to slow the descent rate of 670 feet per minute. The aircraft landed hard with a 3.8 G impact, and its attitude was such that the tail struck the ground. The jet, Yankee Romeo Bravo Mike suffered underside aft fuselage damage, but none of the 147 passengers and 7 crew members, which included a third pilot in the cockpit in a safety role, that's probably important, was injured. 2 of the Blue Air aircraft had experienced similar occurrences in the month before the accident. One of the carrier's 737s suffered a hard landing at 2.57 G on touchdown at Naples on the 1st of April, while a 737 MAX 8 had a 2.39 G hard landing at Luton. Both avoided a tail strike, and the carrier issued a safety bulletin on the 18th of April, but the bulletin was not enough to prevent the Naples accident just 3 weeks later, and the airline subsequently declared that only captains were permitted to perform landings at Naples. So there we go. There's a couple of factors in here. It's Naples, which is a very tricky place to fly into at the best of times. And there was a safety pilot in the flight deck, which would say to me that this was a training flight for a very, very new first officer. So you combine those things together, and you've ended up with a very heavy landing and quite substantial damage to the aircraft. Should the captain have let the first officer land? I would probably have intervened and kept control way back at 1,000 feet when it all started to go wrong. If I had decided to let them take control back again, when it went wrong the second time, I would have either taken control or gone around and tried again and done it myself. But obviously I wasn't there. I don't know what they were doing, but those are my initial thoughts. It doesn't help as well. The wind changed direction, which is a classic thing in Naples, because you've got hills on the way in. They were landing on 2-4, which is you're coming in over the hills. It's a very steep approach, really steep, and you get all sorts of convective activity there as well, depending on what time of day this was. And the runway is short-ish. I can't remember if it's narrow. It can't be narrow, but it's shortish. So you get a really messed up picture in your head of you coming in from high, steep angle. The runway's short. It can really mess with your perception of how high you are above the ground in the flare.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors in this.
I suppose there is a strong argument. The trouble is like it's all very well. I mean, the statement says there, for example, that essentially only captains should be landing here. Essentially, is what that it says in that report that you were reading. But also there has to be an element. As you say, the trouble is if you have to gain experience somehow, don't you? And if it is a tricky airport, you need to do that. But the issue here for me is not, I mean, a line like, only captains should be landing at this airport is not helpful, in my honest opinion. And really, the fault for me lies with the person who was, lies with the captain, frankly, because, as you say, should have intervened much sooner. When you are learning, if it's an unusual approach, if it is difficult and all that kind of thing, things will go wrong, as you rightly say. And you just think, for me, that's where the error lies. Actually, not so much the first officer, who is inexperienced and therefore, isn't. It's too much to expect them to get it right first time.
At this point in their career, I would say to them, right, I'm going to fly this approach. Just have a look at the picture outside, see what it looks like, try to understand what this approach is into here.
Yeah.
I do understand the notice from the company about, right, we've had a few instances, we're making it captains only, because the company also has the issues of insurance,
right?
Maintaining the schedule. The more instances they have, their insurer's going to be less happy. That's going to push the insurance cost up. And the insurer could have also stated, you are not allowed to let anybody other than captains land there, otherwise we will not insure you.
Right.
So there's all those variations as well.
Bill says,
and a 3.8 G impact is quite a whack, isn't it?
It's a big
number.
That
is heavy.
It's a big number.
Bill in the chat room says, Andy says, shouldn't they have started to go around early?
Yeah, I agree. When you look at each step of the way here, it was just getting more and more unstable. The captain should have just commanded the go around and have another go.
It's unusual we hear about 737 having a tail strike, isn't it? It's normally an A321 Neo. It's the usual flavour of aircraft for this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Now, Matt, you've got the next story, and we're going over to the US for this one.
Indeed. The source is not on this one, so that's interesting. Anyway, Atlanta retains a title as world's busiest airport, and Haneda, is it? Haneda leaps into the top 10. Ooh, that's interesting. The Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta, ATL, has regained its title as the world's busiest airport with 104,653,451 passengers travelling through the aviation hub in 2023. The Airport Council International, the ACI, which announced the results on the 14th of April. My phone's done it again, sorry. Said that the global the total passenger forecast for 2023 stands close to 8.5 billion, an increase of 27.2% from 2022. The passenger numbers also recovered to 93.8% of pre-COVID-19 pandemic levels, with international travel noted as a strong driver of this. Global air travel in 2023 was chiefly fueled by the international segment, propelled by several factors. ACI World Director General Luis Felipe de Oliveira said, among these were the anticipated benefits from China's reopening and a growing inclination towards travel despite macroeconomic conditions. Dubai International Airport, DXB, climbed 3 positions to become the second busiest in the world with nearly 87 million passengers, and Dallas-Fort Worth International, DFW, served 81 million, finishing third, while perennial leaders from the US continue to dominate the top 10 busiest airports for passengers, notably Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport retaining its number 1 position. There are notable shifts. Dubai International Airport jumped to second rank for the first time, while Tokyo International Airport witnessed a remarkable ascent from 16th position in 2022 to 5th in 2023. London Heathrow Airport was in 4th place with 79 million passengers. The other airports to make it into the top 10 were Denver, Istanbul, Los Angeles, Chicago, New Delhi, to name just some of them. When looking at only international passenger numbers, DXB came out on top with 86 million, followed by LHR with 74 million and Amsterdam Schiphol Airport with 61 million. Actually, that number surprises me. I don't know. I always felt like Amsterdam, because it's such a major sort of through hub for a lot of people, for a lot of airlines as well. I thought that number would be higher. Anyway, Hong Kong International Airport also maintained the top position for the world's busiest cargo airport, followed by Memphis International Airport and Shanghai Pudong International Airport.
So just to give you an idea, London Norwich Airport, our local airport here in Smith,
yes.
last year we achieved 334,874 passengers.
Yeah, wow.
That's pretty good for a tiny little place like that.
There are unconfirmed reports that at Dubai this week they were having to hand out water wings and flotation devices to passengers.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It probably was quicker to go by boat.
Or canoe.
Yeah. Indeed.
I wonder, as that was obviously a story about a very popular airport in the US, I wonder what someone in the US would think about that kind of stat. I mean, who have we got? Who have we got from the US? Who we could ask? Armando.
I feel like you had this story about Atlanta just because I went through there, and of those 10 million passengers, I feel like a tenth of that were in my way today in the deconcourse. which is under construction, of course. So, yeah.
Hello, Armando.
Hi. Not to, I didn't want to come off top rope there with a tantrum. It's just been a day of traveling.
We've got a guy for those.
Yeah, I was going to say, as I say, we haven't heard Nev's rant yet. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm sure it'll be better than mine, but mine's just, Atlanta's always, those 10 million people are shoved in there pretty tight. Those, you know what, my only complaint with Atlanta is the terminal concourses are not very wide, and it's the typical where like every flight, as soon as they say we're pre-boarding, everybody just bum rushes the gate, and then it creates havoc on the main, walkway of the concourse. I dare to say you guys also have that figured out over there. I know, Nev, you have had your share of tantrums, but let me tell you, you guys have it figured out with the whole lounge and the waiting area and then announcing the gate just prior. Like, oh my gosh, hate's a strong word. It's challenging traveling in some of our large airports.
Especially with that amount of people. Jeez.
Yeah.
Nev, you've got the last story this week in the commercial.
Yeah, it's on simpleflying.com, and it says that Boom Supersonic has received official FAA clearance in a special flight authorization, SFA, to break the sound barrier deemed Mach 1 or 1 times the speed of sound with their XB-1 prototype and chase aircraft. For Boom Supersonic, this accomplishment is just one small legal step in many to produce supersonic aircraft. An SFA is when the FAA gives special clearance to go past the speed of sound, and the FAA has to conduct an environmental assessment for each SFA. In that environmental assessment, a clear purpose and needs statement that reads, the purpose of the project is to conduct overland supersonic flight testing of the XB-1 experimental aircraft in a risk reduction effort for the future development of a supersonic airliner overture. The 20 authorised flights will occur in the historic Black Mountain Supersonic Corridor and a portion of the high-altitude supersonic corridor within the R2515 airspace, which has been used extensively for research and military supersonic aeronautical operations. These operations include testing the Bell X-1, the first X-plane to breach the sound barrier, the North American X-15, which set records for height and speed, and the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird spy plane. Furthermore, as Boom Supersonic CEO Blake Scholl shared with Simple Flying, he says that there's XB-1, which is kind of analogous to Spaceship One. It's a technical proof of concept in this learning vehicle. We will build XB-1 to learn, to discover what we didn't know, to discover what it really takes to build a civil supersonic aeroplane. Haven't we already done that? One that's safe enough to be flown by a human. Now that XB-1 has legal clearance to go supersonic, the XB-1, according to an April 16th Boom Supersonic statement, will conduct some flights planned before reaching supersonic speeds. Test flights allow in-flight testing of all systems, such as the flutter excitation system for the XB-1. Ultimately, Blake Scholl shared with Simple Flying that the XB-1 is intended to help Boom Supersonic gain the skills and safety culture to build Overture, the first supersonic airline since Concorde. The XB-1 also tests critical subsystems like remote cockpit views, taking the composite structure at that supersonic speed and testing digitally optimized aerodynamics past the speed of sound. Additionally, sonic booms are so loud to be disruptive to many. In fact, the US federal law ban on supersonic flight and why Concorde, which was the last supersonic transport, was mainly used on overwater routes. The shape of the aircraft is also a factor in generating supersonic booms. The XB-1 is too small for overwater flight, so overland testing is necessary within special airspace. Test pilot Tristan Brandenburg, a former US Navy test pilot who flew in the boom supersonic chase plane for the XB-1 first flight states. Right now, the plan is to do multiple supersonic flights. We plan to do Mach 0.1, 1.2 and 1.3 on the first 3. The reason for that is each one of those points takes so much airspace that you only have time to do one of them. So we'll be on condition for several minutes. We'll get a flying qualities and handling block and have to come back home. So it's a lot to do with supersonic test flying. I mean, remembering what Concorde had to go through.
I have some. Sorry, yes. Nev. I have some questions as well. If they need permission or every single time we flying this, what is the ultimate purpose of this aircraft? Is it just going to be a Concorde replacement flying across the Atlantic again? Otherwise, what's the point? What's the need?
It's a very good question, and also I forget what the cruising speed was going to be of this previously.
No, yeah, the Boom Overture, I believe their ultimate goal is to do transcontinental supersonic flight. This XB-1 is just their demonstrator, and they're going to work on the shape of the wings and the fuselage in order to reduce that sonic boom. I think we've done a couple articles on this in the past, 2 years now, right? That we've been talking about boom supersonic. But I believe that they will probably start with the transatlantic, maybe trans-Pacific, most likely transatlantic. And then the ultimate goal is to do transcontinental. Nick had a question in there about, the overall feeling of where this is going. The boom supersonic factory is actually in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's about an hour north of here. And I fly one of my client airplanes out of there, and they're making really, really good progress on that facility. So whoever their investors are, I think we might actually see this come to fruition in one way or another.
I still think it's going to be your grandchildren, Nev, that are going to see a supersonic passenger aircraft. I don't think it's going to be within our time.
Wow, you just aged Nev there, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying.
It might be in his time. You don't know how long he's going to live.
No, absolutely. I was just thinking how long it took from the drawing board and the testing phase with Concorde before it entered service. So it was, I think production aircraft were around, or pre-production aircraft were around about 1969, something like that. It wasn't until 1976 that the aircraft was actually certified to fly and was on real routes with revenue generating stuff.
Yeah, that was a different time though, wasn't it? We can do things much quicker now.
Yeah, and actually a lot of that delay was our chums in the US not allowing the aircraft into their airspace.
They probably won't have a problem with their own aircraft though.
Quite. We wouldn't want to mention that.
At least you got the chance, Nev, to fly on Concorde.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
And that very aircraft is sat nearly on the threshold of 27 left at Heathrow.
Oh, is that the one that's covered in grey?
Yes, needs clean again.
Yeah.
Not been done properly.
No.
So to answer the question from earlier, the some of the specs on the Overture aircraft, it's Mach 1.7, which is 1,100 miles an hour, depending on altitude, I guess, with up to 80 passengers, depending on configuration, and a range of 4,250 nautical miles.
What was the capacity on Concorde, Nev?
Concorde was 100, wasn't it?
100 passengers, and a cruising altitude of up to 60,000 feet at Mach 2.
Oh, wow.
The other thing is that area between Mach 1.7 and Mach 2 is extremely difficult to get through, which is why Concorde needed, between sort of about 1.2 and 1.7, needed afterburners to get through that. But once it got through that part of it, it was able to turn the afterburners off. Otherwise, it wouldn't be enough fuel to get across the other side of the Atlantic. But of course, it's all about the commercial operation, isn't it?
Yeah.
How will they make this work?
I like Nick being on sort of the fact checking table tonight. That's quite good.
He's been very good, hasn't he? He's always been, but especially so tonight.
That does make us sound way more legit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does.
What's the fastest you've been, Armando? Obviously, all the aircraft that you've flown. What is the quickest you've managed to get up to?
0.84.
0.84.
Yeah, in a corporate jet.
Mm.
I've never had the pleasure of breaking the sound barrier.
Yeah.
I've also never flown in a fighter jet. So,
weirdly, that surprises me.
No, it just wasn't my scene, right? I was a kind of a little airplanes guy in the Air Force, and then the Osprey is so unique that I never got a chance to do like an incentive ride or anything like that on a fighter jet. So, never done that.
There's still time, Armando.
Yeah, you know what? I'd rather go fly a Mustang or a Spitfire than jump into a F-18 and go Mach 2. But that's just me.
So, Nev, moving on to the next part of the show, and what's coming up, Nev?
Oh, yes. Well, we're going back to the Drone Summit in Dublin. And the next interview, this was a really interesting one, I think. It's a company called Angoka, who was founded in 2019 by 4 serial entrepreneurs with the mission to protect the future of smart mobility and smart cities. It was originally spun out of an R&D project conducted by SciNation involving cryptographic protocols for connected and autonomous vehicles. In the 2 years since founding, the team has grown exponentially and is continuing to grow. Additionally, they have expanded internationally with headquarters in Belfast and offices in London and The Hague. Well, we spoke to Shadi Rezik. He's the Chief Technology Officer at Angoka, and he's a cybersecurity and business digitization expert and successful tech entrepreneur with previous employment with Microsoft. He has consulted with security working groups and committees at Tech UK, BSI, Europol, and ENISA, E-N-I-S-A. He's also held advisory positions at fintech, security tech startups, international blue chip companies, government organisations, financial services, and SMEs. Well, Matt Clutterbuck spoke to Shadi about his company and the very interesting technology they employ.
I'm joined by Shadi now from the company Angoka, and we're going to find out a little bit about what he does. So thanks very much for coming on. If you could just tell us a little bit about the company and what you do in that company.
Well, Angoka is an IoT security company. Our main focus is to enhance the resilience and the safety of smart mobility and smart cities. We have focused on addressing the security needs for the new digital infrastructure that will enable drone operation, autonomous vehicles, to help us unlock the economical and as well as the sustainability issues that we are looking at into our future cities.
Lovely. And security is becoming a big issue, or certainly a big question within this growing industry, that, you know, all these drones flying around, can they be hacked, or if someone's using a drone for maybe, let's say, an illegal purpose, there needs to be ability to stop it.
Correct. And with the new technologies that we're looking at, like drones and autonomous vehicles, technology is advancing quite quickly, and we are depending a lot on it. So cybersecurity becomes quite an element to police that technology and ensure that it does what it should do and not being used illegally, as you said, or for unwanted intentions. And any technology is hackable. It's only about the time and finding the right resources and the person who's really keen to do that. And we have done a number of analyses and studies over the past couple of years. So we are publishing a threat landscape report for the advanced air mobility, where we have analysed a total of 25 different deployments across the UK and Europe. And we have discovered a total of 150 vulnerabilities across these different systems that anyone from, you know, the 16-year-old kids who's tried to learn how to hack stuff towards state actors and organized crime that they can take advantage of it and actually manipulate the service or steal information or use it for ill intent. And the latest use case that happened of actually organized crime flying a drone to the roof of a bank to be able to hack on the network of the bank and steal data. So even if you're not hacking the drone, but you're actually using it maliciously. And that's where the industry needs to start to look at, because we focused on safety for a long time, and security is part of safety, it's part of the digital safety of that operation. And the regulator and the industry now are looking at it, and we are excited about that in order to be there to help them as well.
So where does your company come in then? We've got this issue that's been identified. Drones are hackable or they can be used for malicious intent. Where does Angoka come in?
For us, we come at 3 stages. We come at the early days. If you are building the technology, we help you to put security by design into your solution. So we will help you to assess the risks and the threats that your design that you are building for it, and how you can address it and mitigate for it. The second area of intervention is actually we help you to secure and manage your security on your system. And the third one, if anything, God forbid, happen, we're always there to help you and support you to respond and restore back your service. Those are the 3 areas that we always come and help organizations with.
Lovely. I have to ask the question, where does the name come from?
The name is originally is a Japanese word, and it's mean encryption. Within the founder teams, we have strong links with Japan. So we wanted to have a name that related back to the history of the founders. So we went with the name Angoka. Plus, Japan is the origin of robots and when things have started. So we wanted to relate back to that story as well.
Fantastic. So how easy is it to hack a drone?
It's quite easy, actually. A lot of people think it's quite difficult and you need very sophisticated tools, but we have demonstrated multiple times that anyone with very open source type of set of tools that you can download it from the internet, you can easily, within 5 minutes, be able to get access or a control of a drone and actually compromise the operation of it. And we're more than happy to show you.
Did you give us a demonstration?
Yeah, of course. Let me show you. So here at this side, we have our technology that sits on a sample drone that helped to protect the communication. And I have here 2 of our engineers, Vincent, he's a senior software engineer for us, and Sayed, he's a security engineer. They will demonstrate to us how you can hack a drone. Sayed will try to crack into the password of the drone and take over, steal the video feed of it, and then bring it down. Vincent here will be our pilot. He will be flying the drone, and you would see how he will lose control of the drone and the camera feed.
Okay,
brilliant.
Lovely.
Great.
Excellent. So what is it we're doing here then, Saeed?
Hi, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick network scan. So what happens really is this drone connects to a Wi-Fi network. That's the controller, the pilot has it. So what I'm going to do a quick network sweep. So I'm using an open source tool called Wi-Fi to do a network scan. And if you can get the screen in there, you can see that the target Wi-Fi, we're using a Tello DJI drone. So I'm going to look for that drone in there. And as you can see here, it's already started to appear here. Once I've got my target machine in, I'm going to pause the network scan, and there it is. I'm going to give number 3, because it's appearing at number 3, and I'm going to start capturing the handshake file. Once I have the handshake file, I'm literally just going to brute force it, and that's it. That's all I need to get into the Wi-Fi network.
Okay, great. Let's have a look at it working then.
Here. So what I can show you here is the resources in my laptop. I have NVIDIA graphic card and Qt library installed in it. And now I'm going to do is I'm going to crack the password file that I just pasted before. So it just takes a few minutes to crack that password, because what we have is we have 8-digit random password. So for 1 digit you have 10 possibilities. So think about it, 8 digits is 10 permutations for that, so it's like 100 million possibilities. So at the back end, while we're talking, this laptop is doing 100 million possible combinations for that password. And if I click the status button, I can see it's still working on it. It's trying all the combinations it can. So we're gonna give it a little bit of time, and it'll crack the password for us.
Okay, lovely.
And what Sayed is doing here is a normal type of technology that you can purchase at your PC carriers or any place. It's a normal laptop. You can utilize it. These tools available online. You can search for them and Google them and you download them. And they come with detailed descriptions. I mean, what Sayed was doing at the moment is pure, like you are writing a Word document and then you're changing the title of it and you're copying and pasting it into another machine. That's exactly what he's doing. He's updating the dictionary that we are using to find the right digits for that password. It's what we call a birthday attack, which is trying to guess when someone was born, and you go through the numbers and the months. It's doing the same process in order to identify it. And most of the time, these type of processes, the longer the password, the better, because that means it takes longer time, but still within 5 to 10 minutes, you will be able to crack a very long password through the process. But what we have seen into a lot of these operations, the passwords are very short, so it won't take you more than a minute, and then you are already into the handshake. And the handshake that Sayed I've talked about, it's actually the connection between the drone and the controller. Them establishing that connection, and you already have intercepted it through the password.
So once you've hacked in, do you then emulate? I mean, you pretend that you are the controller for this drone.
Exactly. You pretend that you are the controller of the drone. You do the same operations, whether you change the video feed, whether you take control over the drone, make it fly in different directions, or simply just turn the drones off.
So you could have a situation where a drone's flying, the user can still operate it and they know nothing about it, but 100%. All you're doing is just pulling the video.
Yes. And what will happen is, in certain attacks, that's what they will do. And we have seen that there are documented cases for police services that they are using a drone to follow a certain person of interest, and then a certain organized crime, they want to change that video feed to show that that person is still there while they have left the place. And there have some documented use cases in the US of those type of attacks.
Sounds like something out of a movie.
It is. It does sound like part of the movie, and that's where the technology have got us to, into that side. So I'll go back to Sayed.
Thanks, Shadi. We're still working on the brute force bit. We're still 3 minutes in, a few more minutes to go while we can talk about it. So the only barrier or the only security parameter is this Wi-Fi network. And you said, once I'm on this Wi-Fi network, all I need is to send a command to that specific port. So for drones, you have specific port for command and control, and then for video stream, you have a separate port. So as long as I know what IP address the drone is at, it is quite easier for me to extract any confidential information, and I can do anything I want with the drone. So just a little more patience, and then we'll show you a live drone fallout from the sky.
Lovely.
So now Vincent is flying the drone and he's operating it, and he's taking a footage of us and the surroundings, while now Sayed is trying to connect to the same connection between the drone and the controller using the password that he cracked, and then he will change the commands. So in order to take the video off, and as you can see on the controller, he lost view of us, and now Sayed take control of the video and will bring the drone down.
Fantastic.
Super.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much for that demonstration. Really interesting technology, and there's so much risk, I guess, with this, and we've seen now how easy it is to hack, which is quite surprising.
It is, and there's a lot of risk, and the risk is not just about the drone falling, it's more about the whole operation and what is the purpose of it, and if it was malicious intent to utilize those drones to do bigger damage for it more than anything else. We are always looking forward to work and collaborate with drone manufacturers, drone operators, the authorities as well, and educate and increase the awareness of those challenges and those risks, because I think we all need to collaborate together in this industry to see the benefits out from it.
Absolutely. Thank you ever so much for your time. If anyone wants to get more information about the company and wants to contact you, how can they do that?
Well, they can easily reach out to us on our website. It's ngoka.io. We are based in Belfast. We are across a lot of the shows, or on our social medias on LinkedIn or on Twitter. Please just go ahead, reach out to us. We're always looking to collaborate and work with people. And if people have certain questions, we're always happy to help as well.
Perfect. And we'll also put the details on the show notes so people can get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Wow.
That's so cool. Seeing the way they take that the drone down is...
It didn't take him very long to do it either.
No,
that was the other thing.
Scary quick is how quickly he got control of it. Really a genuine eye-opener. And, you think if, it's possible to do that, I mean, the havoc that could be caused, with powerful versions of that system.
We could have done with these guys at was it Heathrow or Gatwick now a few years back?
Oh yes, well there was a whole discussion about that later on in some of the interviews that we've got planned. So yeah.
Right, Nev, time for the newest segment on the show that we play each week.
Yeah, this is I've not seen this one actually. This is the Retro Airline Ad of the Week segment. And this week we go back 44 years to 1980 with an ad that features the then TWA chief pilot James Edward Frankham. Frankham was TWA's first and only executive and chief pilot. He commanded the 747s that transported Pope Paul VI and Pope John Paul II to and from the United States. He safely negotiated to the ground an armed hijacker with a plane full of passengers and commanded the company's inaugural Lockheed 1011 TriStar flight. And here is the ad.
TWA's Lockheed L-1011. It's today's most advanced widebody. The L-1011 has all-weather certification.
It's the only wide body with a flying horizontal stabilizer, so it's the smoothest plane in the air.
I love this L-1011. That's why I'm glad it's the only wide body I fly coast to coast.
Our L-1011 fleet. It's one reason I like us. It's another reason you're going to like us.
You're going to like us, TWA. You're going to like us.
Honestly, I'll bring the faders up and he starts singing. Honestly, what you like? Meh. How do we feel about that clock, though, Nev? The retro, the VT clock.
Also, I'd like to know who wrote the intro for that piece.
Oh.
Because someone doesn't know what an L-1011 is, I don't think.
What? Yeah. Well, I mean, my understanding was that one of the biggest fans and/or supporters of the TriStar L-1011 was the person who wrote that. Did something occur there, Nev?
Oh, I don't know. Honestly,
yeah. Alan White knows exactly why I picked that one.
Oh, does he? Oh, right,
definitely.
Okay.
But more next week. We have got a vault full of retro airline ads. I've still got probably about another 5 BA ads.
On the internet, Matt.
Quite interesting. So more on that.
Oh, the internet, right? Yes. No, I have heard of that. Yeah.
So next part of the show, as we said at the beginning, and it's obviously time for. Well, it's time for Nev to have a good old moan.
Attention, this is the final call for British Airways Flight 475. Paging from house for Mr. Neville Mounds. Your seat 1A is waiting for you.
Continuing the theme of how difficult it is to get on and off an aeroplane, how about this one? This afternoon, flying back from Edinburgh to Heathrow, there are two areas which have got those tensator belts on. It's all set up perfectly. Groups 1 to 3 over here, groups 4 to 9 over there. That's a group area that I'm not familiar with, clearly. And it's all perfectly done. So there are I counted them. There are 9 people from the ground handling company in high-vis jackets standing by the gate. We're not boarding yet. They're just deplaning the previous flight. And they're all chatting away. Anyway, somebody decides it's a great idea to muck with the tensators and have them in different positions and put them in so people can't go around it properly. Why do they have to fiddle with it? Is it a thing? Why can't they leave it alone? And of course, inevitably, when we came to board, one of the groups, I forget which one it was, couldn't actually get to the gate because they now blocked it off because they hadn't put the tensator belt in the right place. Honestly.
Well, I've learned something tonight. I didn't know they were called tensator belts.
Well, I don't know if that's is that the trade name for it, or is that
Other belts are available.
Yes, it could be one of those Hoovers, couldn't it? Possibly. I don't know.
Controversial.
But yeah, I mean, why muck about with it? Don't fiddle with it. It's not broken. It's all set up perfectly. But the number of people there from the ground handling company was just extraordinary. And we don't get on the plane any quicker, of course. It's just very, very painful. So my suggestion to the gate staff, as one of my work colleagues would say, no touchy-touchy.
Aaron in the chat room says, Nev, you've got to watch out for those high-vis wearers.
Well, yeah, they're all over the shop, especially airports, especially airside.
Well,
yeah, you can get away with anything if you've got a high-vis on and an A4 clipboard.
And a Motorola radio. Other radios are available.
Of course, yes.
I don't have the radio, but I've got the other bits.
Quite. Yeah.
Dear. Alan White has corrected me. Yes, it indeed is a product name, Tensator.
Is
but
it?
I'm sure other belts are available. Yes. I used to think Tensator was a male underwear product.
Careful.
But,
family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
Wasn't sure where that was going.
Me neither.
It's obviously not.
Gosh, I just got very tense there for a minute.
Anyway,
very tense.
Thank you, Nev, as always, for that Nev's rant. Always good to hear. Hopefully, we'll have some more again soon, Nev.
Well, I hope not. I hope we can cancel the segment, but clearly not. The more anyway, I'm going to Glasgow on Tuesday, so it's all going to kick off.
Oh well, there we are then.
I'm sure. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, stay tuned next week. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I shan't be on the show next week, obviously.
No. Okay. No.
More on that later.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, more on that later.
Yeah.
So, as you are here, Armando, would you like to introduce the next part of the show?
I suppose, despite you guys' best efforts, we're going to keep talking about drones. So, Matt, hit the button.
Lost up bogeys 135, 50, Angel 16, heading 340. Okay. 108 bogeys.
And this first story in the military news segment this week comes from the forces.net. Worrying this is when I read the headline because I think of jobs. But anyway, Royal Air Force sets out 10-year plan to increase use of drones amid changing face of the front line. The Royal Air Force has unveiled its plan to change the face of warfare over the next decade thanks to the rapid evolution of drone strategy. The Defence Drone Strategy and the Royal Air Force Autonomous Collaborative Performance Strategy, ACP, say that after a pint, guide the military's future involvement, human involvement with machine and teamwork, AI and other technologies around uncrewed systems powered by autonomy. We expect to field an operational capability within the next year, explained Air Chief Marshal Sir Rich Knighton, the Chief of Air Staff. He said, as we look to the future, it's clear that autonomous collaborative platforms will play an important part in enhancing the mass, lethality and survivability of our combat air forces, he said. Building on the defence drone strategy, And in close collaboration with the Royal Navy and Army, the Royal Air Force will focus on low-cost, autonomous, collaborative platforms to augment the operations of our existing crewed combat air platforms. The lessons learned from the Ukraine have guided the evolution of drone warfare, as both sides in the conflict have used uncrewed weapons in a variety of ways to devastating effect. Under the ACP strategy, the Royal Air Force aims to work with the Royal Navy and British Army to incorporate more advanced technology into the military using cost-benefit analysis to produce the best results. The project aims to enhance the operational effects achieved by the military's current and future crewed aircraft. The RAF is also keen to ensure that legal and ethical considerations are taken into account with this approach. One of the aims is to include defining digital architectures for seamless operational integration and fostering a culture of innovation. Furthermore, the Royal Air Force will be equipped and operating a suite of ACP aligned to the strategic imperatives of defence outcomes. This collective capability will provide a decisive competitive advantage over current and future enemies. So I think it's going to happen. As I said, my only worry is, Armando, is is this doing people out of the job of flying amazing fighter aircraft, jet aircraft?
No, yeah, sure, maybe 20 years from now, but I think for the time being, this is augmenting the current force structure, but it's kind of been going on for a long time, probably longer than most people think. And I'm not just talking about the predators and the reapers that everybody knows about from the past 20 years. I'm talking about these small form factor drones and unmanned vehicles that we've actually been employing in combat for probably longer than you think. And this article goes right along with what you guys were just talking about from the drone summit with Angoka and their system and architecture security, all the vulnerabilities that you guys were talking about in that article directly correlate to this, where the unique thing about the military aspect of this is it has to be secure. You can't have a drone that can be hacked. You can't have, a $10 million armed drone that can be hacked. I mean, that's the plot of so many different sci-fi movies, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's why this takes so long. But trust me, it's been going on a lot longer in the government sector than it has in the private sector. And I think the technology is just kind of helping each other out now.
Yeah. Now, the next story you've got, Armando, is all about an aircraft that's celebrating 50 years of flying this year.
Yeah, 50 years and still in demand. We've been talking about this since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Shortly after that, they started requesting the F-16s, but the U.S. Navy has actually granted Norway permission to transfer 22 F-16s to Ukraine. This transfer will include not only the aircraft, but the engines, the support materials, simulators, spare parts, other relevant equipment. This information was first reported by an Argentinian website called Zona Militar, later confirmed by Norwegian online newspaper Nettavisen. So Norway has 22 F-16 Block 10s and 15s airframes ready to transfer to Ukraine. Not all of them are currently believed to be in operational condition, but like we like to do in the military, it's we'll transfer 22. That's to make probably 15 to 16 working airplanes, and the rest will just be cannibalized for spare parts and whatnot. We did do a story on this show in 2020 about Draken Aviation. They're a private contractor here in the U.S. that does adversary or Red Air. They had originally acquired 12 of these Norwegian F-16s. That deal fell through, so we can only imagine that those F-16s that didn't come over to the U.S. for, again, adversary training are actually the ones that are going over to Ukraine now. Anyway, so looks like it's finally happening. Norway is transitioning to the F-35. So 24 of them are already on the ground in Norway. 10 are here in the U.S. for their pilot training. So the F-16 looks like is finally going to be landing in Ukraine soon. And we've done a couple stories also about the pilot training that has been going on here in the U.S. As well as in Europe with both, I believe it's Spanish pilots that are doing a lot of the training. So yeah, it's finally happening. Took that long.
Now, Andy, you've got the next story. Quite a nice story, this one.
Yes, this is a lovely and finally this one from bbc.co.uk. A 99-year-old RAF veteran has been reunited with the Tiger Moth aircraft in which he made his first ever flight 80 years ago. Flight Lieutenant John Cooper took a trip from Storm Mary's Great War Aerodrome in Essex on Sunday, along with the biplane's co-owner and pilot Terry Dan. On the 14th of April 1944, Mr. Cooper made his first flight in the Tiger Moth T6055, which was renumbered as Golf Alpha India Delta Sierra in 1946. He said the anniversary flight was wonderful and he had thoroughly enjoyed himself. Mr. Dan and co-owner Keith Pogmore said they had spent more than 8,000 hours restoring and maintaining the aircraft. Mr. Dan said flying a Tiger Moth can be quite demanding compared to a modern aircraft, as she needs a lot of TLC, but it's very rewarding. After going up in the biplane, the aerodrome said Mr. Cooper had a bonus quick jaunt in another historical aircraft, a 1946 ex-Army Air Corps Oster. Mr. Cooper was born in Sheringham, Norfolk in September 1924 and joined the RAF in 1943. He undertook his first training flight in the T6055 at Satellite Landing Ground Alton, Barnes. He was one of 8 trainees accepted for further training out of a group of 50 going on to become a bomber pilot and then an instructor. He flew more than 6,000 hours for Air Cadets and retired from the RAF in 1955, taking up a career as an air traffic controller. The aerodrome's chairman of trustees, Martin Gill, said it's always a privilege to welcome guests to the museum, and Flight Lieutenant Cooper is a particular honour, especially on such an auspicious occasion as this. Mr. Cooper said flying is always so special, and today has been a wonderful day. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. Very nice.
Wow.
Do you guys remember your first airplanes?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember the tail number?
I do. Zulu, Kilo,
sorry.
Charlie, Tango, something.
You could either come up with the tail number or the name.
Oh, it was a Robin. It was not Robin R200.
Cessna 152, Golf, Foxtrot, Lima, Yankee, or G-Fly.
Battery-powered drone.
Mine was a de Havilland and Chipmunk.
Oh, nice. Mine was a 152, 49909.
I think it was Al's PA28.
That's N registered, isn't it, now?
Which is on an N plate, yes.
Yeah.
Was that at Seething, on the way up to Seething, or before that?
No, that was going across from my local airfield at Booker, at High Wycombe, across. Yeah, that was to Seething, wasn't that? That's right. Yes. Yeah, forgotten that.
How cool.
The story harks on the sort of level of flying you do now, Armando. Obviously, a Tiger Moth, slightly similar to the current carry-on family aircraft.
Yeah, Bob Mills that was on the show. He was the F-14 pilot that punched out in the Atlantic. Told us a story about it over the course of 3 different episodes. He actually just bought an original Booker Youngman that has just been restored in the last few years here in South Carolina. So he's actually flying one of these kind of old 1930s, very similar to a Tiger Moth. Yeah, we have them here in the U.S.
So good. So it's time to start to wrap up the show, but we have got our Caption This picture of the week. The picture we put up on our social media is on normally the beginning of the week, and we let you guys and girls comment on with your witty comments. Now, this week's picture definitely, it got the taste buds going. Anyway, Nev, for the benefit of our audio listeners.
And apologies in advance should this cause any offence, by the way.
Nev, what's
we
going
don't normally
on?
have to put out an apology when we put this up.
No, I know, but yeah.
Rather nice catering trolley with some doner meat in it, as we would say. And there was no shortage of contributions to this week's one, and some of them were extremely funny, as you're about to hear.
Yes, Paul Tricker kicks off with, no joke, he says, I want this on my next flight. Chili sauce, please.
Yeah.
Michael says, Stag Do Airlines really do know what their passengers want.
Oh, I like this one. Neil Draper, new Qantas in-flight service from Jason Donovan. Your Nan will love it.
Oh, no.
Let's see. Mark Heffer says, no, honestly, the man in 1A has never seen one before. He doesn't know what a doner is.
How rude.
Oh,
how rude.
Darren says, the early days of EasyJet when Stelios was the CEO, kebabs were all the rage.
Damien says, the last flight home on a Saturday night kebab special.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm going to be terribly stereotyping here, by the way, Nev. This strikes me as a food one would sort of not expect you to eat.
I know what a doner kebab is.
I know, but I feel somehow it's like
I know what it's like
brow.
to have one at 1:30 in the morning.
Oh, fair enough.
Steaming full of beer.
It was more. I was shocked it existed when you were out clubbing. That was.
Yes, that is true.
They just had cows on the street.
Fair enough. Yeah. Cows and blowtorches. Yeah, absolutely.
What's John saying? Someone take John's.
John Falk says, ice cream is not an option on this flight, madam.
Ice cream?
Yeah.
Well, I'll take the next one. Steve said, this is what really happened on Alaska Airlines. Garlic sauce breath on the whole airplane. Quickly, someone pop the door plug.
Yeah, that works. Yeah. And that's the explanation we didn't know we needed.
And our local listener, Mazouz, says, meanwhile, due to an unfortunate mix-up, the mystified high street takeaway received a large delivery of donuts.
I should say, by the way, that other local listeners are also available.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are very much. So, but have we got anything in the chat room this week?
Yes, I've just popped up Richard's one, actually.
Yeah, Richard Adams is saying, I can't read the ones on the notes, so that this is handy. I'll take these if you like. Normal Friday on low cost, just like home. 10 pints, big kebab, and a fight.
Oh!
Hobby Time says, Ryanair reveals new takeaway onboard experience. I like that one. I think that's my favourite.
And Richard Adams pops up there with a classic. Classic, this one.
Yeah.
No need to eat the fish, at least.
Yeah, I don't know which one I'd rather take my chances on, if I'm honest with you. The fish or something that's been sort of spinning around for several weeks before it's... Anyway, sorry.
I'll tell you what, one of our very, very good friends on the radio station saw this picture, didn't he, Matt?
He did.
Comment on how awesome this would be as a treat on board an airplane.
Yeah.
Oh, I would partake.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I quite like a big tray of doner meat, chili sauce, garlic, and chips on the flight deck on a long flight.
Oh,
that'd be lovely.
Yeah. Wash it down with a warm tuna milkshake.
Yeah. Mr. Abel, who Carlos is talking about, he sort of said, just imagine, I'd love to get my chops on that. He said. He also said probably no different to the normal odour on a Ryanair out of Stansted, to be fair. Misses.
I don't know why it's not been done.
Yeah, Dirk S says FAA air conditioning certification test. Part of the biofuel generation plan. I like right, that Mazoos. Yeah, that'll be it.
Right? Like it's a perpetual motion thing. Like
well,
you
quite
just
absolutely.
Serve donors and then you feed it into the
special
fuel
seat and some
tank.
tubing. You're laughing. Absolutely. Darren is saying it's that or a tepid cheese and ham toasty. Oh, now come on, let's not be dissing the panini, the Ryanair panini. I'm a big fan of that. Send it to the cockpit with salad. FO had better be partaking. Yeah, quite. Indeed, I love that.
It's a good idea. And I think, you know...
Do you think the issue is perhaps, you know, the requirement for, you know, like gas heating? Maybe that's the bit that's preventing doing it on the flight.
That's what I was thinking as well. You need a good old-fashioned Cala gas heater, don't you, to get it turning around and burning. But
what could possibly go wrong there? Yeah,
perhaps, Andy, this is something you should bring up with your airline at your next general meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right now, I just want a kebab, to be honest, after all this talk.
Yeah, I'm a bit peckish now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is the person in that photo not wearing shoes? Are they just wearing socks?
Hang on. Oh my goodness, yes.
That checks.
No. That's not good, is it? Richard Adams also was saying, could there be a better reason to fly Turkish Airlines? No, I don't think so.
No? Yeah, it will be quality. It will be quality then.
Yeah.
I love it. Listen, you guys know how to do kebabs. That is something that is also yet another thing that is unmatched here in the... Wait, unmatched? Yeah, we can't do it. We can't.
Also,
there's nothing like a kebab at 2 a.m.
Also, I think it's fair. It's also one of the fastest ways to get food poisoning here in the UK as well. To be fair, because they're not all reputable.
I would take it.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
I mean, is it food poisoning or is it the 12 pints that you had? You know.
I mean, obviously that is open to negotiation, of course.
Yes.
Fair enough. Anyway, can we start talking about this now? I'm starving.
I'm going to have one of these.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, dear. Anyway. Right, moving on. Before we wrap up the show, we have obviously got we've got a very special show coming up soon, but not as soon as you all might think. Next week, because we have got a phenomenal amount, our videography team, being Nev and Matt, have got a lot of work to do with putting the show together for the 500th show special that we're doing in a few weeks' time. That's going to be on May the 1st. I think that works out, isn't it? Wednesday, May the 1st. So that'll be our special 500th show. Next week, the kind of special episode, we've got a very big treat for you indeed. Next week's going to be slightly different as we still obviously got this prep work to do. So we'll be speaking to an A320 pilot who flies for a European airline. She got she promotes through her Instagram page, inspiring future pilots from around the world and women in aviation. It's definitely not going to be one to miss. And that's coming up next week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. on YouTube, right here. It's a great interview. Me and Armando and Andy were chatting to her, for the interview. And it was good, wasn't it, Andy? It's definitely one to look forward to.
Yeah, it was really good. We had a good, it was nearly an hour-long chat we had as well.
Yeah. So that's coming up next week on the show. So it won't be a live show, but we will still be putting out an awesome interview next week, and it is honestly, it's very good. You've got to watch next Wednesday for that interview, and we'll also be playing out another interview from Dublin as well on next week's show. Then the week after, on the 1st of May, we will be having our 500th special show. And as a treat for all you guys and girls who are in the chat room, especially as our chat room family, if you want to be a part of our live show on the 1st of May, we're going to open up to offer you the chance to come on the show with us live, as we all are now on the Zoom call, the world of Zoom, and join us on that show that night. So if you want to come on the show, we have had a few emails from various listeners who want to join us on the night. If you want to come and join us on the Wednesday, the 1st of May, for our 500 special show, send us an email, details coming up on that. Now, Nev, where can they send their emails and stuff to?
Yeah, we can send an email to podcast@planetalkinguk.com, or you can drop us a note at our WhatsApp number, +44 757 224 9166. Just search all the socials for Plain Talking UK. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn, and obviously on YouTube as well. You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help to shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room, as so many people have done. Also, you can become a patron of the show, or give us some money by PayPal. This is to offset some of the media hosting costs, website hosting costs and all the rest of it, and the occasional cable that breaks. All the details for that are on our website, www.plaintalkinguk.com.
Yes, that is where we are going to bring this episode 499 to a close of the show. I'm going to say a big thanks to Andy for joining us this evening. As always, great to have you on, Andy.
Oh, pleasure as always. It's been good fun.
And also thanks, Armando, for joining us as well. That's nice to see you tonight.
Always. I'm glad I could make it.
Thanks to Nick as well for all the work this week, putting all the bits and pieces and the interesting intros together for the show. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And thanks to Nev as well for all your hard work.
You're welcome.
We will see in a few weeks' time. And thanks to Matt as well for pushing all those right buttons and faders over in the Master Suite studios. That's it from all of our studios across the globe. Have a great Wednesday evening and the rest of the week, and a great weekend. And you'll see us all again next Wednesday. Say goodbye, Nev.
Take care. Have a good week. See you.
And there we are.
Yeah, something I've meant to mention as well before we finish the show. If any of you guys and girls here in the chat room at the moment can't make the 1st of May for the 500th and want to send us some audio feedback or video feedback even just pop it into the usual email address, and we'll play that out on the show. Yeah.
We've got lots of regular names in the chat room, so let's have a scroll up the chat room. Tanya, Neil Lamworn, Mazoos, Darren, Richard E. Flag, Dirk, Bobby Time.
Yeah, Dirk's got his request in. Neil's got his in. So
who else? Scrolling up, some bloke called Armando.
Never heard of him.
No,
I'll send something in.
Dodgy guy. There's another guy called Neville Bounds in there. Who else have we got? But yeah, anyway, all the regular listeners. Let's get some videos, get some audio, send us some stuff in, and because it's all about getting everybody involved and getting everybody in the show. It'd be nice to hear from people.
I'm going to look on eBay later on for a 10-seater belt. See if I can put one in my studio here.
Love the sound of that. I think you should definitely. I do think you are worthy of a cordon. I think, Nev.
I'm now sort of visualising you sort of commanding Mrs. Nev to
Yeah,
in particular, there'll be a sort of a new routing structure in order to go.
We don't want to go there, really.
I've thought of a great competition with those things. Have you ever tried to unclip one and clip one back in really quickly in a hurry?
You can't do it.
It's really hard work, isn't it?
Yep, not possible.
Have you ever had to do that at work where you're trying to just get through the masses and you clip and now you look like a big dum-dum?
And then you let go of it and you go, oh, God, I've got to go back over there and pull it back. Oh, it's just a mess.
You just leave it alone. As Nev said in his segment, leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Stop touching it.
Yeah, leave it alone. Yeah.
Way to look in command.
Yeah. Any authority you had before the incident, very much gone straight up.
Which was small anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all know those belts are a waste of time and the group board and signs are a waste of time anyway, because as soon as they say the flight is board and group 1 first, group 1, 9, 50, 60, 80, 10,000 will all start cramming on anyway. And the gate staff generally don't tend to bother stopping them as well.
Yeah, true. True. Well,
be interesting to see actually in a few weeks' time when me and Dad fly out of Stansted to Malta, because we've not got priority boarding with Ryanair this time.
Oh no!
But be interesting to see just how quickly we get on board, as opposed to the priority line.
Yeah, as quick, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably.
Especially when you end up on a bus to go to the aircraft.
Yeah. Never mind. It's all a bit of nonsense, really, isn't it?
I have zero status on Delta, and I've just been flying more and more to this one destination where the only services from Delta Airlines. And it's funny because I'm main cabin 2, and I just looked it up. So like here's Delta's boarding groups, pre-boarding, right? That includes U.S. military and the people that need extra help. And then Group 1 is Delta 1 or first class. Group 2 is Delta Diamond and Medallion. Group 3 is Delta Premium Select. Group 4 Delta Comfort Plus. Group 5 Sky Priority.
What is all this?
My head is just about to explode.
Group 6 is main cabin 1. Group 7 is main cabin 2. And then I don't even know if there's a main cabin 3.
You're a nobody.
Literally, and I'm sat in
class.
Oh, jeez. I felt like I was in one of those like TV shows, like a joke. I was like, really? How many groups are there before main cabin?
Be sat on the wing.
And is in Group 1 when it says US military, is it open brackets, thank you for your service, close brackets?
Yeah,
it should be. It should be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well,
I must say, having said that, I'm not joking about that. I am impressed with the gate staff when they see US military boarding the aircraft. They all say to them, "Thank you for your service." I think it's a very nice touch. And so often, I think the UK military, well, we've seen, haven't we? The recognition is not as great. Put it that way. Yeah.
Travel in uniform's not really.
We don't travel in uniform.
Oh, really?
No. It's back in the 90s maybe, but we don't travel in uniform anymore. It's actually, I mean, aside from the legitimate, thanking our service members. By the way, that is actually open to you. Some airlines just say active duty military. That would be open to our partner nation. So if you're UK military here in the US, you're active duty, you can also board.
There you go.
But serves two purposes. One is, yes, thank you for your service. Two, often we have, as military members, like all kinds of luggage. Like we have very awkward items. Sometimes very rarely are you carrying weapons, but sometimes you're carrying weapons. And like, it's such a pain in the butt. Or a lot of times you're just going somewhere really far. So it's nice to board a little bit early. But then there's the security aspect of it, where I don't think that this is an open secret that the cabin crew wants to know exactly who is able and capable when they're boarding the airplane, and trust me, they know. who on the airplane they're going to go to should there be a disruption or something.
Should it all kick off?
Yeah.
As we say in the London region.
Yeah, and I'm just talking about the kebabs.
Yeah, I'm just off for a chicken sheesh.
Oh, all right.
Garlic,
I'm going
garlic,
now.
mayo,
Bye
and chili
then.
sauce.
Yeah, I'm off.
Keep that to yourself, Nick. Yeah. What you do in your own time is your own thing.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
Right, we better let our YouTube family get back to their Wednesday evening. So big thanks again to everyone in the YouTube chat room for joining us tonight. Great to see everyone in there as always. Don't forget, next week we won't be live, but we have got a really, really good show to bring you. So make sure you tune in next week at 7 o'clock here on YouTube for that. Well, that's it. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks to all the team as always. Nev, last words?
Yeah, as Carlos says, next week's show will be really interesting. I think you'll really enjoy it. I've not seen it myself yet, so that'll be great. And of course, the week after, it's the 500th show, which I have not quite finished editing yet, which is why I need a bit more time to do all that. But it should be great. Hope you have a good week and a good weekend, and don't forget to tune in same time next week. Bye for now.